Book of Heaven, Volume 3, Call of the Creature to the Order, the Place and the Purpose for which he was created by God, by the servant of God Luisa Piccarreta, little daughter of the divine will. Page 6-12. November 11, 1899, obedience prevents her from conforming to justice. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and it seemed I was going around the earth. Oh, how inundated it was with all sorts of iniquities. It is horrifying to think about it. Now, while going around, I arrived someplace and I found a priest of holy life, and in another place a virgin of blameless and holy life. We gathered, the three of us together, and we began to converse about the many chastisements that the Lord is sending, and about the many others that he keeps prepared. I said to them, "And you, what do you do? Have you perhaps conformed to divine justice?" And they, seeing the strict necessity of these times, and that man would not surrender even if an apostle came out, or if the Lord sent another St. Vincent Ferrer who might induce him to conversion with miracles and prodigious signs. On the contrary, seeing that man has reached such obstinacy and a sort of insanity that the very power of miracles would render him more incredulous, invested by this most strict necessity, for the good of men, in order to arrest this rotten sea that inundates the face of the earth, and for the glory of our God, so offended, we have conformed to justice. But we are praying and offering ourselves as victims, so that these chastisements may turn out for the conversion of the peoples. And you, what do you do? Have you not conformed with us? And I, no. I cannot, because obedience does not want it, even though Jesus wants me to conform, but since obedience does not want it, it must prevail over everything, and I am forced to be always in contrast with blessed Jesus, which afflicts me very much. And they, when it is obedience, surely one must not adhere. After this, finding myself inside myself, I saw dearest Jesus for just a little, and I wanted to know where that priest and that virgin were from, and he told me that they were from Peru. November 12, 1899, Jesus allows Luisa to spare a chastisement. This morning my lovable Jesus came and transported me outside of myself, and I saw as if something was supposed to move from the heavens and touch the earth. I was so frightened that I screamed, and I said to him, oh please, Lord, what are you doing? How much ruin will come if this happens? You tell me that you love me, and then you want me to be frightened. You have seen it, haven't you? Don't do it, no. You cannot do it, for I do not want it. And Jesus, all compassion for me, told me, my daughter, do not fear. And then, when have you ever wanted me to do anything? I should not let you see anything when I chastise the people, otherwise you bind me everywhere. Well then, I will fortify your heart with fortitude, and I will make as though a trunk arise from it, so as to hold whatever you see still. And then I will pour so many graces in you as to be able to nourish myself and my children. At that moment, something like a trunk came out of my heart, with two branches at the top in the shape of a fork which, rising up in the air, would catch in between them anything that was about to move so that it would keep still in one single point, and far away it seemed to touch the earth. Afterwards, I found myself inside myself, and I prayed him to placate himself, and it seemed that he would quite surrender, so much so, that he shared with me the pains of the cross. Then he disappeared. November 13, 1899, Jesus suffers in seeing creatures suffer. Luisa offers herself to console him. This morning my adorable Jesus seemed to be restless, he would do nothing but come and go. Now he would spend time with me, and now, almost drawn by his most ardent love for creatures, he would go to see what they were doing, and with his whole self he would suffer with them, from that which they were suffering, as if he himself, and not they, were taken by those sufferings. Several times I saw the confessor forcing Jesus by means of his priestly authority to make me suffer his pain so as to be able to placate him, and while it seemed that he did not want to be placated, he would then show himself grateful, thanking wholeheartedly Theon, who was occupying himself with holding back his indignant arm, and so he would share with me now one suffering, now another. Oh, how tender and moving it was to see him in this state. He would make one's heart split with compassion. Quite a few times he told me, "Conform to my justice, for I can take no more." Ah, man is too ungrateful, and he almost forces me from all sides to chastise him. He himself snatches the chastisements from my hands. If you knew how much I suffer in making use of my justice, but it is man himself that uses violence on me. Ah, had I not done anything other than purchase his freedom at the price of my blood, he would still have to be grateful to me, but out of greater spite, he keeps inventing new ways to render my payment useless. While saying this, he was crying bitterly, and to console him, I said to him, "My sweet good, do not afflict yourself. I see that your affliction is mostly because you feel forced to chastise the people. Ah, no, this will never be. If you are all for me, I want to be all for you, therefore, you will send the chastisements upon me. Here is the victim, always ready and at your disposal. You can make me suffer whatever you want, and so your justice will be somehow placated, and you will be relieved from the affliction you feel in seeing creatures suffer." My intention has always been this, not to conform to justice, because if man suffers, you would suffer more than he does. While I was saying this, our Queen Mama came, and I remembered that as I had asked the confessor for the obedience to conform to justice, he had told me to ask the Most Holy Virgin whether she wanted me to conform. So I asked her, and she said to me, No, but pray, my daughter, and in these days try as much as you can to keep him with you and to placate him, because many chastisements have been prepared." November 17, 1899, the priestly authority must concur with the victim. My lovable Jesus continues to make himself seen afflicted. This morning, our Queen Mama came together with him, and it seemed to me that she was bringing him to me so that I would placate him, and to him together with her that he would make me suffer to spare the people. She told me that if in these past days I had not placed myself in between, and if the confessor had not made use of his priestly authority in concurring with his intentions of making me suffer, many catastrophes would have occurred. In the meantime, I saw the confessor and immediately I prayed for him to Jesus and to the Queen Mother, and Jesus, all benignity, said, "According to the measure in which he will take care of my interests, by praying me and also by committing himself to renewing his intention of making you suffer in order to spare the people, so will I take care of him and will spare him." I would be ready to make this pact with him. After this, I went about looking at my sweet and only good, and I saw that he was holding 2 lightnings in his hands. In one hand, as though equipped, he had a strong earthquake and a war. In the other, many kinds of sudden deaths and contagious diseases. I began to pray him to pour those lightnings upon me, and I almost wanted to remove them from his hands, but to prevent me from doing this, he began to move away from me. I tried to follow him, and so I found myself outside of myself, but Jesus disappeared from me and I remained alone. Now, finding myself alone, I went round a little, and I found myself in a place where, in this season, they harvest. It seemed that uproars of war were happening there, and I wanted to go to help those poor people, but the demons prevented me from going there where such things were about to happen, and they beat me so that I would not be able to help or to prevent their artifices. They used so much strength as to make me draw back. November 19, 1899, the evils of pride. My adorable Jesus continues to come, and since before he came, my mind was thinking about certain things which Jesus had told me in the past years, and which I do not remember so well, almost to remind me he told me, "My daughter, pride corrodes grace. In the hearts of the proud there is nothing but a void all full of smoke, which produces blindness. Pride does nothing but render oneself an idol, and so the proud soul does not have her God with her. By sin, she has tried to destroy him in her heart, and raising an altar within her heart, she places herself on it, and she adores herself. Oh God, what an abominable monster this vice is! It seems to me that if the soul is attentive not to let it enter into herself, she is free of all other vices, but if, to her misfortune, she lets herself be dominated by it, since it is a monstrous and wicked mother, it will deliver all of its naughty children for her, which are the other sins. Ah Lord, keep it away from me. November 21, 1899, Jesus wants to delight in reflecting himself in Luisa, who is helped by the Most Holy Virgin. This morning, as soon as he came, my most beloved Jesus told me, "My daughter, all your pleasure must be in reflecting yourself in me. If you do this always, you will portray all of my qualities, my physiognomy and my very features within yourself, and I, in return, will find all my taste and highest contentment in delighting in reflecting myself in you." Having said this, he disappeared, and I was meditating in my mind on the words he had just spoken to me. All of a sudden he came back, placing his holy hand on my head, and turning my face toward him, he added, "Today I want to delight a little bit by reflecting myself in you." A shiver ran about my whole body, such a fright as to feel I was dying, because I saw that he was staring at me, wanting to delight in my thoughts, gazes, words, and in all the rest, by reflecting himself in me. I kept repeating in my interior, "Oh God, am I an object fit for letting you take delight, or for embittering you?" In the meantime, our dear Queen Mama came to my help, carrying a pure white garment in her hands, and all loving, she told me, "Daughter, do not fear, I myself want to make up for you by clothing you with my innocence, so that, in reflecting himself in you, my son may find the greatest delight that can be found in a human creature." So she clothed me with that garment and she offered me to my dear good Jesus, telling him, "Accept her out of regard for me, O dear son, and delight in her." So every fear went away from me, and Jesus delighted in me, and I in him. November 24, 1899, Luisa wants to receive the bitternesses of Jesus. This morning my sweet Jesus came and transported me outside of myself. Now, since I saw him all full of bitterness, I prayed him again to pour it into me, but as much as I prayed, I could not manage to obtain that he would pour his bitternesses into me, although, as I would draw close to his mouth to receive his bitternesses, a bitter breath would come out. While I was doing this, I saw a priest who was dying, but I could not recognize well who he was, because I had another intention to pray for a sick priest, but not recognizing him as that one, I got confused whether it was him or someone else. So I said to Jesus, "Lord, what are you doing? Don't you see how much scarceness of priests there is in Corrado that you want to take more away from us?" And Jesus, not paying attention to me and threatening with his arm, said, "I will destroy them more."